Right. And so what you're going to hear a lot of tonight is the common or typical defense against these arguments is some sort of very logical, rational, well, I'm not a lemming. Well, my side isn't bad because of this reason and that reason and whatever. And when we talk about how to actually respond to these, they're not going to be, I mean, there might be logic in the response, but they're a lot of times we're going to say, nope, you're wrong, and I'm not going to let you have that high ground, so to speak. So that's
Well, have you ever in your years on this earth used logic to convince a woman that she is wrong about one of her beliefs?
no.
Have you ever tried to use that logic?
Yes.
Oh, you have.
And I think that's true of all men throughout history. They try to use logic in a discussion or a disagreement with a woman. And it never works. Yet we all try it.
And one of the
Might be
takeaways
part of the
from
reason they're told to go home.
well, one of the takeaways from tonight is, just whenever you get into a fight with a woman, don't try logic. It's not to say that you need to abandon logic. Your argument still needs to have reason behind it. Why? Because women will happily use, if you make an irrational, illogical argument, women will happily use that against you. Like, women know that men are supposed to argue like that. But it's not about trying to argue from a position of logic where emotion is being used. Oh, this is a good comment. I want to pull this one up. This is Chief talking here. Author of The Sociopath Next Door talks about confusion when a psychopath responded pity when she asked them, "What do you want most?" till she understood normies have little defense against it. Yeah. The psychopath wants your pity because it is the quickest way to get you to bypass your rational defenses. Remember, we're not saying give up your rational defense here. We're not saying, in fact, I would say without a rational mind, these arguments work better. These arguments need an irrational mind. They need an emotional mind. And we're going to get into some really cool examples of why that's so important. But
you cannot out emotion a woman.
Correct. So don't try. Don't give them that would be just donating your frame to a woman to try to win an argument, which is retarded, like actually retarded. Yes, I'm going to donate my frame to try and win this argument with a woman. Good luck with that. So, the next argument that you will hear used a lot, particularly, all of these arguments tonight have to do with either women or the church. Why? Because that's what we talk about. This is not a comprehensive list of all the possible idiocy you will see in the argument space, but all of the arguments tonight have to do with women or the church. And so this next one,
you know why?
ahead, Steve.
Let me explain that. Why? Because I can have an argument with a man. It can get very heated. We may or may not reach agreement. We may or may not resolve it. We may be super pissed at each other and not talk for 2 days. And then we come back and okay, it's all good. Yeah, okay, we won't touch that subject again, and life goes on. But with a woman, it never ends there. With a church, it never ends there. It goes on and on and on. And you can't just it never reaches its conclusion. So which are the arguments that trouble men the most? Arguments with the church and arguments with women.
Pretty much.
So that's why we're focusing on those.
And we're gonna keep focusing on not just this episode. You know, there will be much more of this. Yes, Nick, we see you over there. He's sharpening his knife, his rhetorical knife.
Yeah.
So the next argument on the list is the what about. You've probably heard it either as whataboutery or whataboutism. But the general form of the argument, it's a specialization of the tu quoque, which is just Latin for you too. And the argument basically goes, well, you do something, insert superficially similar thing here. So because you do this superficially similar thing, that makes what I'm doing okay. And really, the level of similarity does not need to be anything more than both things are considered bad. I've seen, whataboutism used, like it's how you end up. It's kind of a slippery slope. It's actually not. It's mostly related to tu quoque, but it kind of like people can use it to argue that, because you said something that they don't like on the internet, that you're now a mustache man follower, right?
Well, okay.
Right.
Well,
Because you did
yeah.
something, you said something superficially bad.
I like Rommel. Oh, by the way, he didn't like Hitler anyway, so I can't say that word. I'm gone.
Yep, there we go. All gone. So
He's a bad man. There you go.
Well, so you will see you're actually most likely to see this in the political space, particularly amongst nations. So a very common version of this argument will go something like, well, the United States invaded X. Vietnam was popular for a time. Iraq has been the most popular. So that makes it okay for us to do either invade another country or economic warfare of some form. Whatever it is they're trying to do, the fact that your country did something similar to it, even if for very different reasons, right?
Well, both like some might both like beer.
Yeah.
Well, I know a lot of English guys and American guys that like beer. Well, Germans like beer.
So
Oh
then
no!
why? So then why did the Germans invade? Come on, they both like beer. What's wrong with them?
But how does that explain why the Germans went into Poland? Does Poland have good beer?
I don't know. I've never had anything from there.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, Czechoslovakia. Yeah, because that's where Pilsen is.
Pilsner, yeah.
Pilsner comes from Pilsen. So yeah, okay, that could explain wanting Czechoslovakia, but Poland? I don't know. I think your analogy fails there, but that's the point. That's the point of this. An analogy might be superficially sound good, but it doesn't really hang together on its own merits.
Okay. So how does this apply to women? Where might you guys have seen some whataboutism from women? Oh, come on, guys.
Oh, fresh.
Okay, body count.
Body count.
Body count.
There it is.
Yeah.
The body count comes up.
That's
well.
the answer. They're both bad.
Yeah, men don't like women
They're
with
not
high
the
body
same.
count. Yeah, but men do that too.
I'm not saying it's right.
Those men have
two wrongs don't make a right. Come on.
Well, Nick, remember in the case of the geopolitical whataboutism, they were complaining about the United States invading Vietnam or Iraq. You can make a good case that those weren't good, that it's not a good idea to invade a sovereign nation. You can make a case for right, okay. And you kind of have to, you look at them and go, yeah, you're right. That wasn't okay. That doesn't make it okay when you do it.
Right. But also, yeah, the two things can both be bad. Which one is more bad?
Doesn't matter, is the actual answer. I mean,
there's also things that could be I don't know. I still think both are bad, fresh and fit, but it's actually worse for the woman because it really.
Well, when it comes down to body count, yes.
Yeah.
Because men and women's brains operate differently. They prioritize different things, and their experiences have different impacts on them. Okay. Equal does not mean same. Equal in worth before God does not mean we're the same. And so it's a false equivalence to assume that if a man does something, it's going to have equal impact, repercussions, in the case of evil, on him as it does on a woman. As a similar action. The actions are not quite the same. They might be similar, but the impact might be completely different. The temporal, the mind impact. Now, in God's eyes, they might be the same things. Because I do not have the mind of God. I don't know the mind of God. So I'm not going to make that argument.
Right. Well, and this goes back to and we can relate this back to the geopolitical argument. We're steel manning here now, right? Say, okay, the United States invaded, we've it has been involved in a lot of wars. Well, okay, you can make the argument that each one of those wars was a bad idea for any one of them. Okay, but the net result of the particularly post World War II era that the United States was very geopolitically adventurous is one of the most prosperous, stable, prosperous economically, one of the most stable worldwide. Yes, there were wars, but they were small wars. We haven't fought a really big war since World War II. And a lot of the work that the United States did was in an effort to contain destabilizing forces. Whether or not that was executed with the highest moral, and ethical frameworks at all times, I would have to say probably not. Okay. But overall, you can look at the world with the United States being, Team America World Police. My older millennials will get the reference. As the world actually was a relatively decent place to live for one of the rare times in human history. Whereas if you look at from before World War II, particularly I'm thinking of like the Napoleonic Wars, or where there's wars of conquest, those wars tend to produce a whole lot of death and destruction for not a whole lot of gain to any party except the ego. I mean, I'm thinking of Napoleon here, except the ego of the people who fought, who win. And there was a ton of death and destruction. There's a ton of instability, both economic and social, but also those things slowed down progress. They actually slow down humanity's ability to improve itself. So, not all war is created equal. Again, I'm not saying that the U.S. doing what it did was some sort of flawless ethical and moral thing, but, and this goes back to Steve, what you were saying, different impacts. And it's conversation for a different video, but there is a reason why the United States had a different impact on the world than Napoleon did.